All right, welcome. Today, we're digging into the hidden forces packed inside the words we use every single day. We tend to think of language as just a tool for getting ideas across, but it's so much more than that. It's how we build our world, how we shape it, and sometimes how we break it. Let's get into it. So let's kick things off with a pretty huge question, one that gets right to the core of what language even is. Can words, just sounds we make, can they literally change reality? It sounds like something from a fantasy novel, right? But it's actually a fundamental part of our everyday lives.
And the answer? It's a huge, definite yes. It's happening all the time, in big moments and small ones. And honestly, we often don't even notice the incredible power of what's being said.
Think about a wedding. It's the perfect example. One minute, you have two separate individuals. The next, after an officiant says just a few key words, I now pronounce you married, bam, their legal status, their social reality, everything from taxes to healthcare has fundamentally changed. A few words created a whole new reality. And this isn't just some quirky thing. It actually has a name. The philosopher J.L. Austin called these performative speech acts. He pointed out that when you say something like, I promise, or you're hired, or I apologize, you're not just describing something, you're doing something. The words themselves are the action. But here's the catch. It's not magic. The power of these words depends completely on the context. I mean, if a 5-year-old playing dress-up says, I now pronounce you married, nothing legally changes, right? The words only have power when the right person says them, in the right place, with the right authority. We as a society have to agree to give those words their power. Okay, so if words have the power to create, they also have the power to destroy. That same ability to change reality isn't always used for good. In fact, language can be used to cause very real, very tangible harm. To really get this, we need to understand a key difference between two ideas: offense and derogation. Offense is about breaking a social rule. So if you stub your toe and yell out a curse word in front of your grandma, yeah, that's offensive. But derogation is different. That's a direct insult. It's not about breaking a taboo, it's about actively putting someone down. And that brings us to slurs. A slur is a really, really toxic kind of derogation. It's not just any old insult. Its power comes from the fact that it targets someone because they belong to a marginalized group. And its real venom comes from punching down. It relies on a power imbalance that already exists in society. So let's break that down. What's the real difference between calling someone a jerk and using a slur? Well, when you call someone a jerk, you're judging them as an individual for something they did. But a slur, it does something way worse. It doesn't just attack the person, it attacks their entire identity. It drags in this whole ugly history of violence and oppression against that group. It's like a weapon loaded with historical pain. This whole idea of power and language, it gets super personal when we start talking about our own names. Our name is one of the most basic parts of who we are, and it can become a real battleground. Okay, check this out. There was this really telling study done in Toronto where researchers put together thousands of resumes and sent them out for actual job openings. Now, these resumes were identical in every single way. Same qualifications, same experience, same university degree. They changed just one thing: the name at the very top of the page. Some were given English-sounding names, and others were not. And the results? Wow, they were stark. What they found was that a resume with a name like Matthew Wilson was way more likely to get a callback for an interview than the exact same resume with a name like Young Chang. That's a clear, measurable bias that can lock someone out of an opportunity before they ever get to say a word. And this power packed into a name shows up everywhere. You see it in the real pain caused by dead naming, when someone refuses to use a trans person's chosen name. You see it in history too, like when Black train porters were all called George to basically erase their individual identities. And then you see the fight back, like Indigenous peoples pushing to get their traditional names on official documents, which is a powerful act of reclaiming identity. And, this goes beyond just our names. The exact same dynamics of identity, respect, and power are all wrapped up in the pronouns we use for ourselves and for other people. Now, if you think arguing about pronouns is some new thing, think again. Our language is always changing. You hear a lot of people today say the singular they is bad grammar, right? Well, guess what? English has done this before. Back in the 16th century, you'd use thou for one person and you for a group.
But over time, you just took over for everything. Language evolves. That's just what it does.
So when people get really worked up about these changes in language, what they're really doing is a kind of policing. They're acting like unofficial language cops, trying to enforce a certain set of rules. And let's be real, it's almost never actually about grammar. These objections are usually tied to deeper social views, especially about things like gender. The whole grammar argument often just becomes a convenient cover for pushing back against social change. And this kind of policing gets turned up to 11 when it comes to women's voices. There have been moral panics about uptalk, or more recently, vocal fry, that low, creaky quality. But here's the thing. Research shows men use vocal fry just as often, but it's women who get criticized for it. The host of This American Life even mentioned that he gets tons of angry mail about his female colleagues' voices, but never about his own. That's a classic double standard.
And it's not just vocal fry either. This policing happens with accents all the time. And the prejudice against certain accents isn't harmless. It has devastating consequences. It can literally stop someone from getting a job, finding a place to live, or getting a fair shot at education.
Okay, get ready for this because this is wild. Our own biases can actually change what our ears hear. In a study at the University of British Columbia, people listened to recordings of native English speakers born in Canada. When they saw a picture of a white Canadian face while listening, they heard a standard accent. But when they were shown a picture of a Chinese Canadian face while listening to the very same audio file, they suddenly heard a stronger accent. That's incredible. Our brains literally filled in a bias. So what's the bottom line here? It's that our words are never neutral. They are loaded with power, with history, with our biases. They can build people up, or they can tear them down. They can open doors, or they can slam them shut. And once you know that, well, it gives all of us a choice and a responsibility. So the real question is, how are you going to use them?